This episode is all about contempt.
Sweet. This is a positive topic.
Positive topic. Contempt is a highly destructive trait in relationships and the number one predictor of divorce or relationship failure.
Yeah, because it goes to the I hate you space.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of love.
That's the opposite of love. It's very difficult to want a relationship with someone that you basically don't like, right?
Yeah, it's hard to even talk to them or want to be around them. So
yeah, it
makes it very, very challenging. It makes sense that it's the number one predictor of divorce or separation.
So in this episode, we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what is contempt. We're going to go through what it looks like. We're going to talk about solutions.
We're going to role play.
We're going to role play.
That's right.
All right. But let's go ahead and dive in.
My name is Pye, and this is Dr. Glen. We spent over 40 years researching relationship science as well as practicing in the space of clinical therapy. Relationships are the greatest source of meaning, joy, and success that we experience in life, but they're also the source of some of our greatest pains. We created TWR because in our moments of pain, we need better relationships in weeks, not years. We offer coaching, frameworks, and tools to do just that. Welcome to 12-Week Relationships.
Hello, my friends. My name is Pye. I'm a researcher, educator, and coach.
I'm Dr. Glen. I'm a department chair and clinical psychologist.
Yeah. With 20 years of experience.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15 years of work on your part too.
Well,
come on, man.
You're adding legitimacy to it. So I appreciate you, man. Why don't we get right into the first piece of this, right? What is contempt in relationships? Because we recently kind of did a conversation on resentments, and we said that, well, resentment is the number one sign or predictor of divorce. And it's like, well, we're saying the same thing with contempt, right?
Yeah. So contempt is an escalated version of resentment. So resentment is, you're not meeting my expectations. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. Mm-hmm. Contempt is a moral authority stance for I just think you're dumb and I hate you and I look down on you. And there's this level of just disgust that you feel toward this person.
Yeah. And why we can link those two, why we can say that they're basically, they're not the same thing, but they lead to the same places because resentment takes you to the place of contempt. Yeah, so when you let them fester, they just continue.
It's all part of that spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at contempt, and this is a term that I think the Gottman Institute probably popularized in this space of they did research and showing of the four horsemen, they call it the four horsemen, these traits that basically reveal failure in a relationship. Contempt was the number one predictor in their studies. If you trace contempt back, you're looking at resentment. So that's where when we kind of developed the cores, it's when you created Releasing Resentment, it's really about a 12-day program to resolve resentments before they turn into contempt.
Exactly. Because if you can address the resentment before it gets there, you're ahead of the ballgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rewinding back for a second, if we went to our own framework, we talk about the most critical piece of having desire for a relationship is having regard. Okay. And it's kind of if you were to think of regard, it's the opposite of contempt. Regard is your trust, your admiration, your respect for somebody. And it's critical in both a platonic relationship as well as a romantic relationship. Because the question is, how do you want a relationship with somebody that you don't trust, admire, or respect? How do you feel attracted to that person?
Yeah. You're right, because it's going to go straight to disgust. And you're going to make that face when you bite a lemon, you're like, oh, you disgust me. So we're going to low regard. I hate you. I hate you.
You're laughing when I said that, and I want to know what you're thinking.
Huh? No, because it's very sweet and positive, because you're talking about regard. So it was very sweet that you're doing this. We're talking about contempt, and you're like, oh, this is about loving space. That just made me laugh. Sorry.
Well, I want to describe the opposite side of it.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So the opposite side of it is regard. And what we would say within our framework is you have regard, and then, you can have... think of regard as a spectrum, right? So you have high regard, kind of somewhat damaged regard, maybe low regard, and then disregard. Disregard is contempt.
Straight up contempt, right? And when we talk about your, what I love is desire, quality time, and sustainability. And then once the regard goes away, then the desire goes away. That's where it leads to resentment. And the quality time leads to isolation.
Yes. So when we say what is contempt in relationship, like you said, if I kind of think of you as a dick, if I kind of think you as someone that I don't like, if I don't respect you, if I don't admire you, then it's going to show up in every single thing that I do, how I speak to you, whether I want to spend time with you. It destroys our desire for the relationship once this shows up. And that's why it's the easiest predictor, is because you can see it. You can see it in the way two people interact.
No, I agree. And I think if we kind of boil this down, like why contempt happens, I think it's two things. Like, is it okay to discuss that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think number one, contempt comes in the space of if you mess up, like you do something really bad in the relationship, and then you don't own it fully, like you don't respect how bad the fuck up was.
Yeah.
And you downplay it, that's going to breed contempt.
Oh, for sure.
Right? I gambled our money away. And then the next day I'm like, hey, Pye, let's go over our budget, bro. Wouldn't you want to kill me? Like,
dude, if you gambled our money away.
Wouldn't you want to kill me? Like, that breeds a level of contempt, because on my side, I'm not owning how bad I screwed up, and I'm disrespecting the process, right?
Yeah.
That's a source of contempt. Or on the flip side, if I take a moral authority stance and I assume that I'm better than you and everything else, and I constantly work in this space and I'm promoting a version of myself that does not match the reality, over time, you are going to hate me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what you're describing is like a lack of self-awareness, right? It's this constant, like, not understanding what you're doing, how you're behaving. And yeah, it's going to rub me the wrong way constantly until there's nothing to rub away, right? It's all gone. All my respect for you, all my admiration, everything is gone. All I have now is contempt.
Yeah, but the person that's instigating it, it is a moral authority stance. Like, well, it's not that big of a deal, or they're downplaying it. That is a moral authority, and that's breeding contempt on both sides.
Okay, so kind of having defined what is contempt, and we know that. Disregard. Okay, what does it actually look like in a relationship? And this part is I don't want to say fun, but it's kind of fun, because you can almost see this, and once you actually understand the markers of it, next time you're sitting in a restaurant, next time you're like you can overhear conversations, you can actually hear contempt in the way that people speak to each other, in body language, in what they do. This was one of the big research points in the work that I was putting together for all the data points. As a photographer, I could witness and see the disregard in the way people would behave around each other. And that was one of the big data points I was using.
No, it makes sense. Like, you know, while you're shooting the wedding, you could see how they talk down to each other, or like they're not even showing any level of respect or appreciation to each other that whole time.
Yeah, it would be like, and it would be in different, the cool thing about weddings, right, is that you get to see not just the bride and groom, but you get to see how they interact with everybody around them and how those people interact. It's like a big observational laboratory. So when you look at, like, for example, I remember a set of parents, and the husband would basically speak to the wife, and he would make jokes about her. But those jokes that he would make in public around all of us, they buried these half-truths in there. And you can tell, like, in these, it would be like I would ask something like, well, what do you do for work? And the husband would say, you know, oh, she does nothing. She just spends money. She just uses my credit card. And he's like, do you want to know why I married her? I married her because of her looks. Look at how beautiful she is.
Yeah, it's very condescending.
It's incredibly condescending.
Yeah.
And it's buried, like, you have within these jokes, and she's laughing. Everybody's laughing, right? Yeah. But there's all these truths buried in these little remarks.
Yeah, it's very hurtful. It's like these hurtful slides. I mean, I think the best visual of contempt is you're just a walking fart. Like, you stink everywhere you go, right? You walk, and then you're like, you just smell. And then even if you put perfume on, you smell like perfume and fart. And then when people, because you lack self-awareness, and people are like, oh, they have this facial expression, and you're like, ew, and they're like, what's wrong with you? What the hell's wrong with you, bro? Like, they have no insight whatsoever. They're just a walking fart everywhere they go. They bring a stench everywhere they go. Their lack of awareness, their inability to own shit just brings a stink everywhere. Like, you know, when you fart in your pants and then you try to walk, but it stays with you, that is contempt. And it spreads everywhere.
You're talking about the warm, quiet ones.
Disgusting. It can even be the loud ones. It could be the bubbly ones, but it just stays in your damn pants. Ugh. Why are you looking at me like that? I have cologne on or whatever the hell people do, right? That is a contemptuous human being.
Thank you.
That is
the last episode was the burp and fart combo.
the head up your ass.
The head up your ass. You're a burp and fart at the same time.
At the same time.
This one, it's walking around with a...
Because after you dig your head up your ass, you just farted and now you have shit in your hair and you stink. You have a stench everywhere you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's an escalated version of contempt.
Yeah. No, I like the way you describe something. And I think I've said this before. Glen will describe something and, you understand it when you hear it. And then he'll take it further. and you'll keep giving nuances to it until like I can almost taste it.
You could taste it, right?
And I can taste this.
The wedding guy, the guy that made the comments about his wife, like that is a stench, man. Like homeboy has not only has his head up his ass, but he's being a dick.
Yeah.
He stinks, right? He spends my money. Ew. Ew. Like it's just the whole thing. He's just a walking stench.
Well, and between like in other instances, and I'm with every example that we ever give, we kind of like take all the information, we take all the data, and we kind of synthesize it into something that is we're not giving you guys anything that's like factual that can be traced back to somebody in the sense of identifiable information. This is just synthesizing what's happening to some way that we can all understand it, right? I just want to know that I want to state that so everybody knows we're not, you're not gonna be able to identify anybody before I was saying this. But anyway, going back to like examples, it would be like I'm taking pictures of a couple, and let's say that she forgets his jacket, and we arrive at the shoot, and then he goes, I need my jacket. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot it. And then he would say something like, are you serious? Like, I can't believe you forgot my jacket. I really needed that jacket. And she goes, oh, you forget my stuff all the time. Like, seriously, don't even talk about this. That again is another form of like disregard. Like both of them communicating with each other they're not syncing up. And you can see where it starts as resentment for this frustration because they can't see eye to eye. They can't truly connect. And then it continues down this road where they just don't, they continue to lose respect for each other.
Well, I think that's a perfect example. And it highlights what most people try to do. They just try to bury their feelings, bury the contempt, bury the resentment, and try to act normal. And then in the everyday things like, honey, can you grab my jacket? No, you didn't grab, like it just escalates and it boils into your everyday things because you can't just act normal when there's deep contempt underneath. Yeah. It has to be properly addressed.
That's a beautiful point. You can't act normal when you have contempt living under the surface of a relationship. Every little conversation, every little issue becomes magnified.
It'll bleed into everything. You can't normalize. That's the biggest mistake that people make. Let's just act normal. Mm-hmm. Let's just try to be normal, but let's rationalize this versus we need to honor and give it the respect that this deserves because this is hurting our relationship.
Yeah. There's another point there from our last conversation that I wanted to bring up. When you get to this place where contempt is living under the surface of the relationship, you'll often try to keep the peace, right? And you'll often try to, work on how we communicate and making sure we don't get into fights, don't get into arguments. We're not only not addressing the contempt, we're creating this space where it continues to breed and continues to foster, and we're judging the relationship not off the quality of the relationship, but off the lack of fighting and conflict. If we're not fighting, if we're not in conflict, we're doing good.
Yeah, and again, that's such a low bar. And this is the frustrating thing, and this is what breeds more contempt. You have this hatred or contempt inside of both of you, and then you pretend that everything is okay, trying to create a reality that does not match the feelings inside. That's going to make people go crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you have no feelings whatsoever and you can play it off. But that is a crazy way of dealing with things. Yeah. And in truth, intimate relationships are emotional relationships. You're connecting on that level. You're understanding each other on that level. So to deny that and try to go into this space of like, okay, let's just move on. That's a ridiculous approach. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So summarizing kind of what contempt looks like, it's dismissive or belittling language. It's, body language cues, rolling eyes, scoffing at what you might say, sarcastic responses to things. The death stare. That's what it is. It's these moments where you can see a disregard. There's no respect. There's no trust. There's no And then we get back to that question of like, well, the reason why regard is critical to the desire that you have for a relationship, any relationship, is because how do you want a relationship with somebody that you don't like or respect or admire? Agreed.
And then to build up that regard back, right? You got to own your shit.
Yeah.
On both sides, like regardless of what it is, or if you're doing both, just like, I'm the fart. Hey man, I own it, man. I put cologne on, but I acknowledge that I still smell. It smells like Old Spice and fart right now. I own it. I've been trying to cover it up. I know your faces and your coughs is because of me. And now you can at least start building regard back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. We're going to break that down too as we get to the end. We're going to talk about kind of solving this issue. But so the effects of contempt on relationships, we obviously know it leads to relationship failure. Like we lose the desire for the relationship. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I'd love for you to talk about like the health components of this too, because I think it's worth reiterating over and over. But I do want to talk about this. Like you cannot separate attraction from regard. We build those two things into each other within our framework because this is the whole concept. Like, how can you be attracted to somebody, whether it's a friend, whether it's platonic attraction, or whether it's romantic attraction? How can you be attracted when you don't like the person, when you don't respect the person? It doesn't matter how beautiful they are. And this is where we have to connect these two things. We have to look at attraction. And when we think of something like contempt, we have to realize that contempt destroys attraction. That it doesn't matter how good somebody looks. It doesn't matter, how charismatic they are. It doesn't matter. None of those things matter anymore.
I agree. They just look like a piece of doo-doo in front of your face.
Which is kind of crazy because when you hear two people break up, one of the things that we do from the outside is we kind of judge. And a thing that you'll often hear is like, oh my gosh, she was so beautiful. Why would you end that relationship? Or your husband's handsome and successful, and why would you, just because he did something wrong, he cheated, maybe you should still give it another shot, right? You should still, and everybody from the outside judges based on these outside kind of surface level things, not realizing that once there's contempt, none of those things matter anymore.
Yeah, because you're knowing that person in a more intimate space.
Yeah.
And within that space, like to me, like when it comes to contempt, it is legitimate because there's reasons people feel that way.
Absolutely.
So until it's owned and acknowledged, that is like at least half of the starting point of moving toward higher regard and rebuilding this relationship.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the other effects though, health-wise, when it comes to kind of carrying this disregard or contempt within a relationship?
High blood pressure, inflammation, autoimmune diseases, and cancer, which is crazy, right? It could lead you to cancer. Mm-hmm. If you hold that resentment, because it makes sense, right? Like if you're resentful, you're contempt, you have the headaches, the body tension, you can feel it in your chest, the heaviness, the frustration, the racing thoughts about it. Like that's not good for your health.
No.
Like I'm assuming maybe you're burning some calories, but that is not good for your damn health.
Yeah. One of our favorite books on this, Dr. Gabor, it's funny. I heard the correct pronunciation of his name recently, and I don't think either of us are saying it correctly. But anyway,
well, how do you say it?
I forgot that.
Is it Mate?
It might be Mate. Anyway, Dr. Gabor Mate or Mate.
Yeah.
He has a fantastic book, When the Body Says No, that basically summarizes all the research that these elevated stress hormones and elevated anxiety that by and large is created. I mean, it's created by a number of things, but one of the biggest things is your relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's just an aggregate of all these studies of how this is literally killing us. It's affecting our health, both physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. And we don't realize it.
Relationships can be toxic.
Indeed. even when you don't necessarily think it's toxic, like when you're just like, oh, this is what relationships are, is these challenges, it can still be toxic. It can still be unhealthy.
But it's such a low standard when it comes to relationships and what people expect, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what we're trying to say on our show is the familiar is a very low standard when it comes to relationships. So we're saying, look, we want to challenge you. We want to make you feel uncomfortable so that you will rise up into the unfamiliar and we'll be like, hey, come join us, right? Mm-hmm. Let's have a better existence. Let's have higher quality relationships. Let's expect more so that you can be happier.
Yeah. I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but I do want to just have a section where we just talk for a moment about causes of contempt in relationships. You want to kind of recap that?
Yeah, so it's basically 2 points. I mean, basically it's moral superiority, thinking that I am better than you. And it comes from a place of either I screwed up really, really bad and I'm not respecting or acknowledging it. Like, again, if I gambled our money away and then the next day I'm like, hey, let's talk about our budget, acting like everything is okay, being the solution, that is going to breed resentment. Or if I am portraying myself to be a certain way, but in truth, I am not that way, and we consistently live this out, then this is kind of a form of gaslighting, right? That breeds contempt. And on both examples, or maybe this person is doing both, there has to be ownership, there has to be acknowledgement, and there has to be change. And that's the only way that contempt can be broken.
Yeah, I love that, because what you're, and tell me if this is a correct kind of summary of what you're saying, but if we were to back this out or unpack this into something even more simple, what you're talking about in the first thing is a lack of empathy, the lack of awareness of who I am, who you are, and the behavior between us, right? That's the breeding ground for resentments, where we can't see each other. We can't, you're taking the moral authority stance or I'm taking the moral authority stance, whatever it might be, but we don't empathize with one another.
Yeah, I mean, it's beyond empathy. But again, if I'm in the wrong and I'm not acknowledging exactly the empathy of how much this is hurting you.
Yes.
Then correct. Then
the awareness and empathy.
The awareness and empathy, and then I'm disregarding that. Then yeah, that's going to breed resentment or contempt for sure.
Yeah. So it goes from resentment in this space and it continues until it gets to contempt. And then the other side of what you addressed is when we continuously, I think you were saying we don't see eye to eye on things, we can't. And this comes down to if we were to unpack this, the misalignment in core values, right? We often talk about, usually when it comes to our programs where we're dealing with clients who have kind of wounds and trauma that they need to sort out on their own. They have some relationship issues, but then they also have misalignments in values. And that's that inability to kind of see why the other person's doing what they do or to be able to relate to each other.
And it's so funny because you could see the contempt because core values are to be celebrated, right? Because this is what intimacy is to them and it's what motivates them. And then when the contempt comes in, your values are lower than mine. Yeah. Mine are higher values than yours. Okay, fool. It's
isn't that wild that they would judge their values?
And that's where you can see the contempt. Independence and autonomy is a low level core value. You should just be independent already. And look at how high mine is because I care about people. You could see the contempt play out in that way.
Yeah. This kind of case study and example that you're talking about is one that's making us actually look at the way that we've stratified the core values, because we define them based on a hierarchy, but it's not to say one is better than the other, but that's actually how sometimes when couples have that contentious space, they actually judge each other's values, which is insane.
And it all bleeds in. And again, this is why through our program, your pain, your frustrations, your good side, they're all enmeshed and it gets confusing. You need to be able to have discernment and separate those things out.
Yeah. Okay. Which kind of understanding I wanted to recap that, because in understanding what causes contempt, then we can kind of work backwards to, well, then how do we find solutions? Why don't we talk first about because we would kind of separate solutions into short-term solutions and long-term solutions. Short-term is kind of like triage, right? Two people walk in, they are going at each other. They're literally bleeding out in front of us. What are the things that we need to do in that space?
So I know we're going to go over a short-term list, but the short-term answer is just own your shit.
Yeah. That's the summary of it.
But that's the short-term solution. That's the beginning part.
Yeah.
Pye, I fucked up. Mm-hmm. I am sorry. No excuses. You should hate me. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long this is going to take, but fuck. I'm willing to do whatever. That is the short-term solution, owning and taking accountability first.
Yes. We'll list it out because you're absolutely right that's the simplest short-term solution. it's difficult for people to often get there though. So other short-term ways of getting there is like, well, let's improve how we communicate. Let's practice empathy, which is again, owning our shit, right? Let's learn active listening. Let's show appreciation. Let's cultivate positive interactions.
But those are the byproducts of owning your shit.
I agree.
Because if I do that, now you have space to talk. I'm showing empathy, right?
Yeah.
I'm actively listening because I'm not trying to defend myself. I am saying, yeah, I messed up.
I agree.
And so all of that is a byproduct of just owning your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than, because pride gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Your wounds get in the way. But that resistance that is felt, if you can break through that, then that's where the healing begins.
That's true. Because if we were going back to that gambling example, as long as you're coming to the table and saying things like you say, let's do the budget. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Why are we doing a budget when you just spent our entire mortgage at the casino?
I know that, but that was just a one-time event.
It's not a one-time
event. But
event.
2 years ago, we were good. So you can't neglect the 2 years that I was doing well.
You're not even working right now. That was the money that I earned and I put into our bank account.
I know, but then we're a team right now. There is no I in team. It's we.
When you're working, we're not a team. When you're working, you have your money and I have my money. But when you're not working, all of a sudden we're a team now?
Yeah, we are a team. That was our money that way.
Well, as a team, why wouldn't you ask me before you went and gambled? I'm having so much fun with this. I could feel like
because in team there's an ME, which is me, and so therefore I was thinking about me, and I spent the money.
There is no healing. There is no conversation in this space.
I'm being a dick. One, I'm being a dick. I'm not respecting you. I'm being very even though like I'm in the wrong. I'm being condescending towards you. Because I just won't come clean.
Yeah.
And that causes contempt. Aren't you going to hate me?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Because you can't, I like the way that you put that, because owning your shit has to be step one before you can, like, none of these other things matter. Why would it matter if I were to say, when you did this, I felt like this? No, like if you can't own it, it doesn't matter how we communicate it. It doesn't matter. You can't empathize. I can't empathize because you're still stuck in that space.
Agreed. And again, if I really care about you and I bypass my selfishness, then yeah, I have to own it and give you the space. And I got to take it. I got to take the heat from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the short-term play. Now, once we've kind of stopped the bleeding, because this conversation would be considered bleeding. Like if you and I were just going back and forth on this, that is bleeding. We are losing energy. We're losing, relationship blood.
Inflammation, autoimmune diseases, cancer.
You can't keep going with that without like just self-destructing. But once that's been kind of stopped and the ownership has been taken, then you have long-term kind of approaches.
So long-term approach. So number one, so in that example, I own my shit. Number two, I have to acknowledge why I did what I did and know why this is not going to happen again. And I have to rebuild your trust, right? And then in that space, instead of like, this is the biggest mistake people make. Like, let's just go back to normal. Let's just do this. Let's just do that. And then you're negating all the experiences that took place, right? It's like, we have to accept where this is at and build it step by step and acknowledge it and respect it within that space. And that's why it's called a long-term solution, because you have to get to it's going to take time to rebuild a healthy relationship again.
And if we were to break that down and kind of, we have a sort of 3-step approach that we use in our coaching system, right? And that step one would be to understand your own, just basically your own attachment wounds, your own approach to the relationship. Step two is working to process any unresolved trauma. That again, it's kind of understanding why I did the things that I do, why I am the way that I am. And then step three is to actually understand who I am and work to align core values over time. So it's identifying what are my core values, what are yours, and let's actually work to align those over time. So it's kind of a backwards, but also a future approach where we can look at past issues and resolve those and then create the relationship as we want moving forward.
Yeah. And the reason core values are important is this is a huge thing. Like in this example of like gambling, right? Or, let's say this has been going on for a long time. On the outside, right? Like you gave the example of being on the outside, you could look like a great partner, right? But in truth, you're enabling me. You're probably like a good parent to me. You're taking care of me. You're a caretaker. You're probably like my therapist because I'm doing all this crap, right? but that doesn't necessarily make you a good partner.
Yeah.
And it's separate. And once you do core values, that is like the potential of what the relationship could be. This is how I want to be loved. This is how you want to be loved. And it's moving it toward that space. But you have to work through all the crap first.
I love it. Well, I've appreciated this conversation, my friend.
Me too.
Hopefully everybody has found this valuable. And I guess I want to talk about like, well, what do you do from here, right? I would probably say this, like if you are in this space where there's resentments and there's potential contempt and you want to address this, start with your new program. You have Releasing Resentment, which we've just put out. It's only $47. We priced this because we priced this at this point. We could have charged a lot more, but both of you and I agreed that this needs to be a tool that everybody has. So we put it at that place just to like, give a lot of people incredible value, something that they could just bring into their lives. And it's a 12-day step-by-step guide as to how do you start resolving resentment. And I love the way that you've broken that all down. So that's probably the first place I'd recommend, and we'll link it up in the show notes. But the next piece is if you're in this place of contempt, I would say don't even go to the Crystal Clarity online program is really one for foundational understanding, right? If you're already in a relationship, there's contempt, you both want to work on this. This is where I would recommend one-on-one coaching. I don't know. What are your...
Right? I agree. Like if, releasing resentment is a starting point. But if it gets to the point where it's really deep and you guys are unable to resolve it because the emotions are so strong, the one-on-one coaching program is a way to go.
Yeah. I agree. You need the emotional space. You need the time to be able to actually...
And to navigate your hurt without no holds barred. Like you bring it to the table and we navigate it through honestly in that space.
Yeah. So we do have free 15-minute consults with Dr. Glen. We also have our very first certified CVFT coach, Stacy.
Yeah. So Dr. Stacy's on board. She's really cool.
Yeah.
She was a researcher behind everything that we did. And now she's coming on board.
Which is fantastic. So you guys can find links to that as well in the description and sign up for a time slot. And that's it for this episode.
Thank you.
Hope you all enjoyed. See ya.